Tattoo artists of Reddit, what is your worst client story? Not the worst but still sticks with me. In 1995, my client had committed suicide. In the grieving process, his 3 surviving sisters wanted to get tattooed by me to help connect with their brother who had passed. It was a weird day, not because of the requests or the fact that I was doing memorial tattoos, but because you could feel the tension between the family. My client's death had prematurely brought these siblings together, and somehow, spending the afternoon together in a tattoo shop, they had started to forgive each other and their underlying resentments had started to wash away. It was really great to watch these adult children bond again. So lastly, I tattooed a new boyfriend of one of the sisters. He wasn't getting a memorial tattoo, he was getting a bullhead. This was the first time he had met the extended family. While I tattooed the boyfriend, the girls returned from shopping at a head shop next door. They were showing off some shirts they bought while the boyfriend was in the chair. He saw Nirvana shirt that the girls just purchased and said, "Hey." He blew his head off too, and I sat for 39 more minutes in complete discomfort. I love when this question comes up. I managed a shop and occasionally we'd get Nazis and juggalos. At a friend's shop, whenever Nazis would come in asking for swastikas, he'd tell them $3,000 for your chest but $50 for your hands or face, and it had to be done by the guy who was from the Philippines who tattooed at their shop. This is freaking genius. Not an artist, but I spent a lot of time in shops. This one girl came in one day to get an outline for this absolutely massive back piece. Wings or some crap. The artist who's doing the piece keeps telling us how hot she is and how excited he is to do it. She comes in, and she is gorgeous. She takes her shirt completely off and unhooks her bra. The artist shoots us all this creeper grin. Then he starts the first line. This girl starts full on screaming. I've never heard anything like it. Just a continuous scream the entire time the needle is touching her skin. Then every 10 seconds she would decide that she had had enough, and without warning, she would try to wriggle away. Each time the guy would almost frick up his line and freak out. Cut to, she's crying and topless on the ground with the artist screaming at her about how he's never going to be able to finish, and if she doesn't stop he's kicking her out. He had barely finished a single feather. The girl promises to be better and lays down. The guy starts the gun again and is about to start when she lets out another scream. He hasn't even touched her yet. He slowly takes off his gloves, packs up his kit, and tells the girl to get the frick out. Holy crap, that was a roller coaster read. I was in a shop with a friend who was getting some dumb nautical stars tattooed around his elbow. He was standing up and getting the stencils lined up properly, and he locked his knees out. He hadn't eaten anything at all and promptly passed out, smashing his forehead on the counter on his way down. He bled everywhere and then bad-mouthed the shop like crazy because he was embarrassed, because apparently it was their fault that he can't stand without nearly killing himself. We're not friends any longer. He was definitely that artist's worst client. I worked in a shop for nearly 10 years and only had to throw out a couple of people. Dude came in with his girlfriend and 16-year-old daughter. He decides on what he wants and runs to the gas station before getting started. While the artist was doing his thing, the guy would have his girlfriend bring in his drink for him so he could take a couple sips. He was also talking about pimping her out after he got his tattoo because he wanted to recoup his costs. This seemed a little awkward with the teen right there, but whatever. By the way, tattoo artists aren't therapists and they usually aren't degenerate hedonists who revel in your debauchery. We judge you just as much as any other stranger you may meet, but don't say anything because you've given us money and we want our product to look good. So he's working on plans to pimp out his girlfriend and keeps sipping on his drink every few minutes. About halfway through he starts saying the tattoo doesn't look right. Artist explains that that's because it isn't finished. He becomes more belligerent and it hits me that he isn't just drinking soda, so I tell her she can't take him any more drinks. The artist is pee but just wants to finish the piece, and the dude is getting more pee each time I remind him that he isn't getting any more to drink while he's in our shop. Finally, with a half-finished tattoo, he decides to let us know he is going to kick all of our asses. I think he went for his drink first because he walked out into the lobby area and was looking around while I grabbed the humping stick and helped the artist run him out and locked the door. The guy is outside yelling while the artist is on the phone with the cops. Girlfriend is saying she feels like we are kidnapping her and the teen is obviously very embarrassed and occasionally mumbling that everyone is stupid. Explained to girlfriend that she can leave but dude isn't coming back in without getting his wig split, so we let her out when guy had wandered around a corner. I apologized to the teen on the way out for her unfortunate home life. Dude would occasionally call to let us know he was going to come back and shoot us all, but after a few weeks that stopped. And that's my story. The humping stick. Years ago when I tattooed the shop I worked at Friday night around midnight. Shop closed at 2 AM. Man comes in with some friends and one woman. Guy is hanging all over this woman and most are pretty tipsy if not drunk. Nothing new for a late Friday night. Guy wants a tattoo of the woman's name, Brandy, on his dong. We all say no. He's pretty adamant he's not leaving without getting that tattoo. Shopbound son says he will do it double the cost. Flat rate of $125. Guy agrees. Gets his tattoo, the woman loves it, they leave. Next morning get to the shop around 10 to open up and start cleaning the place. Guy from last night is outside pacing in front of the shop. We walk up and he starts telling us how badly he needs us to cover that tattoo up. Tell him we can't, the location is too sensitive and it would need to heal before we do anything or it'd look like ground beef. Doesn't care, needs it done ASAP. Ask why? Dude was getting married later that day and the girl from the night before, the one whose name was on his junk, was a stripper for his bachelor party. We use Vaseline to help the needle glide over the skin and to stop the ink from spreading over the stencil and surface of the skin. I keep the Vaseline on the back of my left hand whilst I tattoo with my right. Client reaches across, dabs a goddamn motherfucking finger in my Vaseline, then proceeds to moisturize her lips. I was too stunned to say anything other than look up and slowly shake my head whilst in the calmest of voices saying, "Number, we don't do that." I imagine that was said in the most parenting voice possible. So I was doing some after hours work for trade on this dude and his wife, half sleeves for a handful of pistols and rifles. Transferred ownership ahead of time legally because Canada. So I've already got the items and can't back out. First sit. Guy is a total B, like, constantly moving and complaining, wants to take a smoke break every 15 minutes, etc. So it's a little unsurprising when he asks if he can take some Ativan, anti-anxiety medication, for next time. Thinking that he meant like 1-2 pills, and having never heard of anyone abusing them before, I said sure, my mistake. Second sit, wife drops him off and then he takes like 5-6 pills. Then another 5-6 pills right before we start. It's about this time that I recommend maybe he should go a little lighter. Nope. Dude just keeps popping pills like candy, until he's basically a zombie. We take a break and he hobble shuffles to the bathroom, comes back with his pants half off and spattered in pee stains. Then he goes to take more pills and drops his pill canister, scattering tiny pills everywhere, and I get to watch while he picks them up in slow motion. Slobber speaking. I'm sorry man. Please don't hate me. I'm well past the point where I would have kicked any other client out, but I technically still owe him several hours and just wanted to get it over with. So for some reason we keep going. Eventually he passes out and after making sure he was breathing etc. I just lean down on his arm to keep him still and I plow on for another few hours while he drifts in and out of consciousness, asking me crap like if I want to go to a rub and tug with him after. You ever been to a rub and tug? No man. It's a massage and they jerk you off after yeah, I know, wanna go right now Yeah, they aren't together anymore and I still tattoo her semi-regularly. Not a tattoo artist, but while getting my tattoo on my back, had to take my shirt off. The tattoo artist wouldn't stop hitting on me. As the session was coming to an end, he said, "I've got your number already. Mind if I call you?" I still had my shirt off. He was still tattooing my back, so if I said no I was afraid he would screw it up. So I said sure. I had to explain to my now husband why my tattoo artist wouldn't stop calling me. Another girl posted a negative review a month or so later saying the guy hit on her while she was getting tattooed. She said no, and he did a sloppy job. LOL. I spent the better part of the workday freehanding and outlining a dragon back piece on a woman in her early 20s. She had several pieces on her back she had received from a kitchen wizard that we were covering as well, so that raised the difficulty level a couple notches. Her boyfriend and best friend hung out, chatted and watched movies all evening while we worked. All in all, not a bad time. Until it was time to pay. As we finished up and put the bandage on, she turned to me and said, "So I get paid next Tuesday. Is it okay if I come back then and pay you?" I laughed because obviously she was joking. She had to be joking. She better be joking. When I realized she wasn't, I said, "No, that's not how this works. Somebody is going to pay before any of you leave." She turned to her boyfriend and asked, "You've got this, right?" He laughed and said, "You know dang well I don't have any money." She looked to her best friend, who conveniently found something interesting on the ceiling, so she was no help. The client then turned back to me, puffed up a bit, trying to look more serious than I did, and asked, "Well, what are you going to do if we just leave? You can't keep us here." I figured this was going to be her next course of action. She was right. I couldn't detain them. It gets into a grey area near the border of kidnapping and not something I wanted to chance, but what I did do was point out to her that I had her release form with all of her information and a photocopy of her ID. I let her know the second they walk out the door I would contact the police and report them for theft of services. Thinking it over for a few minutes, they sat back down and she started making phone calls, trying to scrape together the cash to avoid police involvement. About an hour later, a half hour past closing, a guy shows up with a fistful of bills for me, and that's when all the heck breaks loose. Her last ditch effort, it seems, was to call the guy she was cheating on her boyfriend with. The guy throws the money on the counter and starts a screaming match with the client and the boyfriend, while the best friend just stands there yelling at everyone. Their use of adjectives was impressive. Somehow I managed to wrangle this herd of cats out the door so I can lock up the shop. By the time I got everything closed down, the screaming match had turned into a fist fight in the parking lot, and someone at the fast food joint a few doors down called the cops anyway. Shop locked up, money in hand. I noped the frick out and let the cops do their due. Thankfully I never saw any of them again. Not a tattoo artist, but was getting the outlines of my sleeve being finished when I noticed this average, normal looking dude start twitching while being tattooed. The artist then became noticeably uncomfortable, and then about 5 minutes later, I crap you not, the dude shat himself while getting a back piece. Reasoning, he was too scared to ask to the bathroom. Sat through the whole ordeal. I apprenticed at a tattoo shop for about 2 years in college. I ended up leaving, running for the hills, when I finally wised up to the fact that the owner had virtually no intent of advancing me in any way, but liked to sexually harass me and use me to get his takeout, and was using the very crappy shop mainly as a front to sell his homemade steroids. He once allowed me the privilege of tattooing the head of his penis. Edit, I actually tattooed it twice. He was satisfied with the first go, and I ended up tattooing something on the shaft a little later. I had pledged to myself when I decided I wanted to seriously pursue tattoo that I would never pass up any opportunity to practice or learn, so I agreed. It was about as awkward as you'd expect, especially because a penis needs to be hard for you to tattoo it. The tattoo came out good, but in the end it was not worth having to stare at that creepstong for 20 minutes while he made awkward comments and my co-workers watched. I'll forever be grateful for what I did learn in my last 6 months there, though. They hired on an experienced older female artist who took a liking to me and ended up teaching me a lot and giving me more and more opportunities to tattoo. The bottom line was that the owner hated seeing me do actual work, and tried really hard to discourage any progress that was being made. It was a really weird and bad dynamic from the beginning, as he was a pisser, not even a tattoo artist, and would basically just force me on whatever unwilling artist he was employing at the time. They never lasted long. I already hate this guy. I recently tattooed a cop who clearly snuck out of rehab to get his fix. Dude was super coked out and asked another artist client if he looked like a C-kid. I tattooed a married man who tried to put his hand up my skirt during the tattoo. I have so many. Not an artist, but spending time with mine I have seen. Steroid beast getting a back piece. Needed a break to pace the room every 5-10 minutes. Girl doing his piece was becoming visibly more agitated every single time. Shop manager comes in laughing about something. Shows my artist an email that had been sent to the shop. Would it be possible to book in a game to make the lines in my tattoo a little thinner? Me and guy that does mine having a smoke break halfway through. The shop being near a train station means we're in Junkie Central. Junkie proceeds to inquire if shop does UV tattoos. No. What if I bring my own ink? Offers to pay in booze and drugs because he doesn't like handling money. The barter system is back, people. Not a tattoo artist, but this is more of the finished work of a scummy butthole tattoo artist, and hey, I actually read that language. Many years ago I had been working and traveling around many countries across Asia, and since I was in Koh Pha Nhan, Thailand at the time, I took a few days off to unwind. Over the next 3 days I regularly saw this Danish girl at some of the beach bars. She had a large tattoo that looked fairly new going down the right side of her back and torso. The tattoo was a phrase in Punjabi rather than the typical Asian scripts of Sanskrit, Chinese, or Japanese. You don't see a lot of those, so it really stuck out. I am originally from this area in India. I finally mustered up enough courage to speak to her and asked her what the tattoo said. According to her, it was an old hippie Sanskrit proverb about bringing peace and love to the world. She had gotten this while traveling across India. She seemed so happy relaying her Indian travel stories, the mysticism, and why she finally got her very first tattoo. I felt so bad for her knowing what it really said. The characters were written so largely I couldn't see how she could maybe convert it into something else. The impression I got from her was she had left India earlier than anticipated, so I asked about this. Turns out the last few weeks she had been hassled by quite a lot of guys. Even the tattoo artist was gropey and seemed angry when she kept turning his advances down over multiple visits, simply wanting the tattoo to be finished. I finally told her what the tattoo said and she was mortified. Not believing me at first, I Skyped a female cousin of mine in India who confirmed what I had said. The girl couldn't stop crying. She always wore something over her bikini after that. The tattoo actually read this BSOS. User and abuser. I have no idea what happened to her afterwards as I had to get back to work, but I'm presuming she had to somehow get the tattoo removed, which going by the size would have been very expensive and painful. Poor girl. Oh my god, this made my stomach turn. Not a tattoo artist, but very crazy tattoo related story about my two friends in Cancun on spring break a couple years ago. They went to a tattoo parlor very drunk. Horrible idea. Cancun can be super violent, and one got a tattoo of our college's logo on his upper thigh. When they got asked to pay, the guy upped the bill from $50 to $300. They disputed and got a knife pulled on them. They tried to run, but one didn't make it, so the other went back. They held on to the guy who didn't make it out at knife point and escorted the other to multiple ATMs around the area and made him withdraw cash until his card was declined. Solid tattoo though. Solid tattoo though. Lawful evil right there. The first guy to tattoo my dad died of cancer a couple of months after he got his first tattoo, and the second moved to Spain, then died of brain cancer. Can I tattoo your dad please? When getting one of my tattoos done, a girl walking in and asked to get her clit pierced. You can probably imagine how that went. Blood and a passed out woman. I got my clit hood pieced the day after I got my first Brazilian wax. The wax was way more painful. A girl came in with parental signature and all to get her first tattoo. She was 17. She was being tattooed by the shop owner, who was, I think, actually doing it as a gift for something because he was friends with her dad. So it's already sort of an uncomfortable situation with her being kind of young, but no one really even paid attention or cared until the needle hit the skin and she then proceeded to sob and wail loudly. We were all trying so hard to stifle our uncontrollable laughter. She insisted he finish, so this went on for around an hour. Just variations of shrieks and sobs barely muffled by her boyfriend's shirt. It was the hardest I had laughed in so long. Not a tattoo artist, but my brother is one. He was roughly 6 months into his apprenticeship and he called me up to tell me this particular story. It's about 2 hours before the shop is supposed to close and some unkept man comes in. Think Skinny P from Breaking Bad. He wants a crappy tribal tattoo, and my brother tried to tell him that he will not enjoy a tribal tattoo in a few years, but he is adamant about it. Anyway, he starts to put the stencil on him and everything is fine. Goes back to get the paperwork ready. He has to sign the agreement saying he isn't under the influence of any drugs or drinking. He gets started on the tattoo after the stencil dries for a bit. The dude is doing fine. but after about 15 minutes he passes out. My brother turns his arm over to look at his wrists. Track marks. The dude is a massive junkie. The shop was known for junkies wanting a tattoo and they have Narcan readily available for this exact case. Now, mind you, this is during his apprenticeship, so his mentor didn't tell him this as a joke and never mentioned the junkie issue. He gives the dude the Narcan and has to call 911, all while he is literally overdosing on his table. I have a tribal tattoo. It is not crappy, but it is very late 90s early zeros. It's like a time capsule on my body. I was getting a tattoo once and a guy came in. He came up to my artist and asked if he could get a tattoo near his dong. The artist kind of cocked his head and said of what. The dude promptly pulled down his underwear a bit and showed a line of shaved hair, the width of a typical razor, to his shaft and said, "I'd like a little dude with a lawnmower there." My artist told him to frick off. That sounds freaking incredible. Not a tattoo artist, but a tattoo artist stopped one of my friend from getting bon appetit above her female area in high school. He basically gave her a long lecture on how it's a terrible idea and it was hilarious. This huge crowd of people comes in, literally a group of like 15. I'm guessing they all work together, so other than them crowding my small tattoo shop, I'm not too concerned. This one gal hands me a sketch of what she wants done on one of her co-workers. They wanted a baby coming out of his butt. Whatever. I've gotten weirder requests. The guy getting the tattoo looks really nervous. Understandable, I guess. He went out to take a breather for 5 minutes or so. Then he comes in, all confident, and pulls his pants all the way down. I politely mentioned that he doesn't need them all the way down. He could just drop them a bit. He declined, saying he'd prefer them down, due to him sweating pretty heavily down there. Then the gal that gave me the original concept gives me a different one all of a sudden. A dog with a shirt saying nod. So yeah, pretty weird experience overall. The nod dog. Not an artist, but I was 16 and my friend said she was gonna pay for us to get tattoos. We get to this guy's house and he has a prison tattoo gun. She gets hers first but couldn't handle it. Guy was wasted and started on my tattoo. He then turned on pee and started wanking it. We left soon after. The fuck did I just read? I am not a tattoo artist myself, but I heard a story about someone whose GF had died and he wanted a tattoo of a yellow Jewish Holocaust badge with her name on it. Not me, but my artist told me about when he first started tattooing and worked in a chain shop. They regularly got P stars and one of them wanted purple polka dots on his ballsack. The only way to achieve this apparently was to make the guy hard. Luckily my artist was busy tattooing and wasn't responsible for fluffing. Pretty sure I'm that client. Obligatory, not a tattoo artist but the tattooed. I had a tattoo artist that I used for all of my ink prior to moving. After I left I had to find a new artist if I wanted more tattoos and did so. I liked my new guy and got several tattoos from him, but looked forward to going back to my original artist after I made plans to move back home. Sure enough, within the month of moving back, I was interested in new work and of course to say hey to my buddy. I didn't plan a specific day to come see him, but the day came one sunny day in April. Like your standard pillhead, I had taken an unknown amount of Xanax earlier and the day before I was scheduled to leave for a friend's party. I was feeling so good, like a goddamn intoxicated hero, and wanted to ride around before we left, and convinced a friend to stop at the tattoo shop. My friend did not know I was immensely fricked at the time. I get into the tattoo shop and my guy isn't there. I'm okay. I barge into this other guy's booth and ask the tattooist, has he seen my guy? He's currently working on a tattoo himself and his canvas is very WTF about me storming in. Naturally, co-owner says he usually comes in at 3. It was give or take 230, so we elected to wait on him and shop for other crap nearby. 330 rolls around, so I came back to check for him, and tattoo man still is nowhere in sight. My drunken mind says it's perfectly appropriate to harass the CO owner about sharing the tattooist's phone number. He refuses and my drunken self gets louder. But he needs to fix my tattoo. It looks like crap. The tattoo I was referencing really did look kinda bad at this point, but I've also had a tattoo for 10 years, so even if the work was never that great, I was definitely way late in trying to get it fixed. In short, I was pretty ridiculous in my tactics to get his number. The CO owner basically says I'm not getting his phone number due to privacy, but we're welcome to keep checking back for him. I came back one more time at 430. Equally as belligerent, I demand to see my tattoo artist or insist that someone else call him so I at least know when he will be in. At this point I am definitely the center of attention at the shop, but didn't realize it until my friend told me after I sobered up. Apparently people are staring and whispering just a bit, but I couldn't be bothered to even notice. Finally my friend convinced me to just leave and come back another day. I remember saying yeah whatever, I'm not coming back here, before walking out with him to go to the party. Needless to say I got sober very shortly after this happened, and now I'm way too embarrassed to seek out my former tattoo guy. So yeah, I am that client. TLDR. Took a face full of Xanax and royally embarrassed myself at my tattoo guy's shop by acting like an but. Now too embarrassed to go back. When I was getting my Blues Brothers tattoo, the artist was asked by another artist to verify the spelling of a word in a Latin language tattoo. My artist said she had no idea, and I asked to see. What was written down was Semper Fidelis, and the artist said that girl who was getting it was marrying a Marine and wanted to get it tattooed on her to show him how much she loved him. I told him that both words were spelled incorrectly and gave him the correct spelling. He said he thought that was how it was spelled but couldn't convince this girl that she was wrong. I suggested Google to show her the correct spelling, and he said he had tried that but she didn't believe it, so he wanted to ask the boss, my tattoo artist, what he should do. I told him that he should tattoo the dumb bee exactly as she asked him to and let her walk around with a misspelled tattoo the rest of her life, but the boss said no. Tell her the correct spelling one more time, and if she didn't listen then refuse to do the tattoo. I was sad that they chose that path, but it was completely understandable. I'm an apprentice. A girl came in wanting to get a starfish tattooed on her butthole. We spent an hour and a half convincing her to get anything else. But honestly, white girls that jump and screech are the worst. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.